Okay, so I was digging into this source material, and this core idea just jumped out at me immediately. You know that feeling.
Hmm.
When you are absolutely 100% clear about what you mean, you've thought about the words, planned it all out, and yet somehow the message just completely tanks. It fails to land.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And we usually blame the other person, don't we? We figure, well, they're just not listening, or maybe, they just can't grasp something so obvious.
It's like the default human reaction, isn't it, that
Hmm.
frustration? For centuries, really, we've gone straight to that conclusion the other person must be, well, not quite getting it, simply because they don't see things exactly like we do.
Right.
But what we're diving into today, uh, it flips that whole idea. The problem isn't always that they're the fools.
Hmm.
Sometimes the issue is that we're failing to understand their perspective, their um, unique way of operating, their manual, so to speak.
And that exact failure, that disconnect, that's really the heart of our deep dive today. We're looking at Thomas Erikson's work. He's a Swedish behavioral expert, specifically his book, Surrounded by Idiots, which, I mean, what a title.
It grabs you, doesn't it? But Erickson's real genius here was taking some pretty complex behavioral psychology and making it accessible. He used the DISC model, which is, globally recognized: D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness.
Which sounds quite academic.
It can be.
Yeah.
But he translated it
Hmm.
into something really simple. 4 colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. Suddenly it's much easier to grasp.
It's not just about sticking labels on people, though, is it? The source material really frames this color system as more like a roadmap for better communication, better relationship.
That word roadmap is key. It
Yeah.
implies you have to do something, you have to navigate.
Yeah.
Because the core principle Erickson lays out is, well, it's not negotiable. Communication happens entirely on a listener's terms.
Not the speakers.
Not at all. It doesn't matter how clear you think you are. The second those words leave your mouth, they pass through the other person's mental filters.
And those filters are, well, everything, right? Their personal history, their biases, their assumptions, their whole frame of reference, everything that makes them who they are.
Exactly right. So you might give a very direct, factual instruction,
Hmm.
thinking you're being efficient, maybe a very red approach.
Yeah.
But if the person listening operates through a green filter, prioritizing harmony,
They won't hear efficiency.
no, they'll hear aggression, maybe even a threat. The message they actually receive can be fundamentally different from the one you thought you sent.
Wow.
So the whole point of this deep dive, our mission, if you like, is to really understand those filters. So we can choose the right tools for talking to different people, create a safer space for communication instead of just constantly hitting these walls of misunderstanding.
Okay, let's get into it. And maybe the best place to start is that story, the anecdote that kind of kicked off the whole book, right? The story of this CEO,
Right.
Steer.
Sure. Yes. He was, by all objective measures, a success. Built his company from scratch in his 60s when he met Erickson. Successful guy.
But
But his opening line, apparently, was a genuine complaint: "I'm surrounded by idiots." He truly believed his staff were fools, morons. He just could not understand why they didn't operate like him.
and the massive irony there is,
Yeah.
well, who hired all these idiots? Who's managing them? It points right back at him, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The author even asks that implicit question. It's a perfect example of how you can be brilliant at business strategy, maybe, but completely fail at the human side of things.
Yeah.
Sture, who sounds like a classic, red-driven, fast, results-focused, was just bombing when it came to empathy, to people management.
Yeah.
The source material even mentions his bluntness was so legendary that his employees actually rig up a physical traffic light system at reception.
Seriously, a red and green light.
Yeah, to warn people if Sture was in the office and, in a bad mood so they could mentally brace themselves.
Wow. A physical warning system for the CEO. That speaks volumes about the level of stress, the communication breakdown. It really shows how calling someone an idiot is just, it's a lazy defense, isn't it? Because we don't get why they act the way they do.
Exactly. And to get the why, we need to understand that behavior isn't totally random. There's a kind of formula, actually. Behavior F, personality X, surrounding factors. It's a function, a calculation, not just chaos.
Okay, let's unpack that formula, because it sounds like we're not just born, say, a red or a green, and that's it.
Correct. It's nature and nurture. The personality part is what Erickson links to heredity.
Hmm.
Our genetic predispositions, sure, but also, really crucially, the core values we absorb in early childhood.
Those deep-seated beliefs.
Very deep-seated
Hmm?
and incredibly hard to change. If you learned very young that, say, being thorough is the most important thing, that quality is everything, well, that blue tendency is going to be pretty hardwired.
Okay, so that's the P in the formula. What about the S, the surrounding factors?
That's the environment. Our experiences, these shape our attitudes, our opinions, our learned responses. And unlike core values, attitudes can change, they can evolve.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a few bad run-ins with salespeople, you develop a distrustful attitude.
Right.
But then one really positive ethical interaction can start to shift that attitude.
Right.
So the behavior we actually see in someone is often a kind of moderated version of their core personality. We put on different masks,
Masks, like faking it.
not necessarily faking it in a deceptive way,
Mm.
more like adjusting. You might be a really high-energy social yellow at home with friends, but at work, if the culture values quiet focus and harmony, you
Mm.
might put on a more measured green mask.
Yeah.
You adjust your behavior to fit the context.
That makes total sense. We're constantly tweaking our volume or speed based on who we're with and where we are. But the color framework helps us see the underlying default setting, maybe.
It gives us that diagnostic tool exactly. Now, it's important to remember, everyone has bits of all four colors. Dominance, red, inspiration, yellow, submission or steadiness, green, and compliance or conscientiousness, blue. But the distribution isn't even.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, the sources suggest about 80% of people have two dominant colors that really shape their behavior. Only about 5% are purely one color. Maybe 15% have three strong ones. So meeting a pure 100% red or a pure blue is actually quite rare.
And the frequency of the colors themselves isn't equal either.
Correct again. Green, that steady harmony-seeking behavior, is the most common type, often mixed with another color. It makes sense. Societies often value stability. But pure red behavior, that high dominance, that's the least common.
That's fascinating. So the loudest person in the room, the one driving everything forward, like, sure.
Statistically, they're the exception, not the rule. Knowing that helps manage expectations, maybe helps us react a bit differently when we encounter that intense red energy.
Okay, let's dive into the colors themselves. Starting with red, the least common, but maybe the one that makes the biggest immediate impression, pure dominance.
Reds, yes. They are absolutely action takers. Their core identity is about being bold, task-focused, extroverted. They love a challenge. They need to win. Goals always, always trump relationships for a strong red.
There's that quote, right? Only dead fish go with the flow.
Exactly. They see standing still, inertia, as almost a personal insult. They have to be moving forward.
What's really driving that, though? Is it just wanting power?
It's a bit more than just power for its own sake, usually. It's about autonomy. They crave the power to make decisions because they see it as the fastest path to results. Efficiency is king. Time is precious. Life's short. Let's get going. That's the red mantra.
So they act fast.
Incredibly fast, often skipping the detailed analysis that, say, a blue would absolutely require. To a red, that deep dive into details just feels like wasting time. Their biggest fear isn't failing. It's looking weak or slow.
Sounds like they make great entrepreneurs, maybe, but probably tough to work for if you prefer collaboration.
Oh, absolutely. They thrive when they can call the shots. Now, their communication style, it's very direct. Strong words, short sentences, straight to the point. Compliments. Seen as inefficient, mostly. Talking to a colleague often sounds like a list of bullet points about the goal.
Okay, but the downsides. That intensity must have a flip side.
Definitely. The biggest issue is often a lack of concern for how others feel. The source says they genuinely don't give a damn about what other people think if those thoughts get in the way of the objective.
Ouch.
Yeah. They can be blunt, abrasive, and if you bruise their pride or ego, which is a big deal for a red watch out, explosive anger is possible. Plus, they are notoriously bad listeners. While you're talking, they're not really absorbing your words. They're already planning their next move, the next action step.
Okay, so if I'm trying to spot a red, maybe across the room, before they even speak, what are the tellsies?
Oh.
Physical stuff.
Look for that command presence. They often maintain a bit of physical distance using space, maybe as a subtle authority tool. Their handshake, firm, powerful. Eye contact, direct, intense. Their movements are quick, purposeful, and their voice tends to be strong, loud, commanding. Reflects that inner urgency.
All right, let's shift gears. From that intense, task-driven red to yellow. The inspiration axis. Infectious energy, right?
Totally. Yellows are the optimists, the charmers, the life of the party. Their core identity is all about creativity, relationships, and extroversion. Life, for them, is just this series of exciting chances for fun and connection. If a red's motto is move fast, a yellow's is something like, ooh, that sounds fun, let me try.
They seem like natural salespeople or great for PR, the connectors.
Absolutely. Relationships and social interaction often come before the task itself. They use humor, storytelling, vivid language makes them super persuasive. Their energy is genuinely infectious. They radiate positivity, brilliant at brainstorming solutions. Though maybe not always checking if the solution fits the problem first.
Right.
They thrive on approval, on interaction. Need to boost team morale. A yellow can often work wonders.
I know a few people who sound like yellows, and the downside seems linked to that very enthusiasm, like a lack of focus.
That's the big one. They can really struggle with focus, with patience, especially for tasks that are detailed, repetitive, or seem, well, boring to them. Masters of starting things, maybe not always finishing. And they can easily get sidetracked into talking a lot, sometimes stopping others from working just because they love the interaction.
And they're also not great listeners, are they? But for a different reason than the red.
Exactly. A red doesn't listen because they're planning the next action. A yellow doesn't listen because they're too busy thinking about their next awesome story, their next joke, how they can contribute to the fun.
Right.
And unlike the red, who can shrug off criticism, yellows need validation. They hate negative feedback. It hits them hard because they care so much about being liked, about looking good.
So red, driven by results and control. Yellow, driven by fun and validation. Makes sense.
And their body language. It screams sociability. Yellows are often physically affectionate, comfortable with touch, close proximity, lots of expressive gestures, maybe a bit exaggerated. Their voice is energetic, full of emotion. They move quickly too, but maybe more erratically than a red, kind of mirroring their fast-moving thoughts.
Okay, now let's switch again to the more common, typically introverted types. Starting with green, this is the steadiness or submission axis, right? And statistically, the most frequent personality blend.
Greens are the world's stabilizers. They're generally calm, kind, loyal. And they have this superpower. They are excellent listeners, truly listen. They prioritize stability, harmony, the group's well-being over their own ambition or competition. The source even says their desire to please others can almost be a driving force.
They sound like the bedrock of a good team. Reliable, they follow through, bring calm.
Absolutely, the dependable backbone. They often excel at routine tasks, things that need consistency. They prefer predictability, no big dramas. They need to feel safe, secure in their environment. These are the colleagues who genuinely ask how you are and mean it. In a team, they'll bend over backwards to support others. They don't usually speak up unless they feel it's really necessary, often to offer support or mediate.
But wait, if they're so agreeable and focused on harmony, where does the difficulty come in? They sound easy.
But the difficulty comes from their deep fear of change and their intense avoidance of conflict. They can be incredibly indecisive because any decision might upset someone or lead to a mistake, disrupting that precious harmony.
Okay.
They often need a lot of justification, detailed explanations, and plenty of time before they'll accept a change. To a fast-moving red or an enthusiastic yellow, this can look like stubbornness, like resistance or passivity. They're the classic fence-sitters, often waiting for consensus before committing.
And what about that anger thing? The beer barrel analogy.
That's the hidden danger with greens. Because they hate conflict so much, they tend to suppress frustration, anger, resentment. They just bottle it up. Erikson uses the image of slowly filling a huge beer barrel, drop by drop. It takes ages.
But eventually.
Eventually it overflows. And when it does, the release can be disproportionately huge. Either an uncharacteristic, explosive outburst lashing out, or, maybe more commonly, it manifests as severe stress, burnout, even physical illness from holding all that emotion in for so long.
Wow, okay. So, spotting a green, probably the quiet one in the corner.
Often, yes. Look for a calm, generally subdued demeanor. Their movements tend to be slower, more methodical, small gestures, not drawing attention. Their voice is often softer, warmer. You might find yourself leaning in to hear them, which actually kind of subtly reinforces the group connection they value.
All right, last color, blue. The compliance or conscientiousness type. These are the analysts, the detail people, the quality controllers.
Blues are defined by that analytical mind. Meticulous attention to detail, usually quite introverted. They're driven by facts, by logic, by assessing risk, and ensuring quality. Their worldview is perfectly captured by quotes like, "The devil is in the details," or maybe, "It doesn't matter if it's easier, it's still not right." Quality over speed, always.
They sound like the essential counterbalance to the speedy red and the maybe slightly scattered yellow.
Absolutely necessary. A blue simply cannot make a decision without data. lots of data,
Yeah.
and structure. They need evidence. They will dig into every single detail, preferring everything in writing, following procedures. Forget a handshake deal, they want the documented plan.
Right.
They need quiet time to process, think things through internally before they offer a very measured, precise contribution. Their biggest fear: making a mistake, being wrong. Public criticism based on an inaccuracy is devastating for them.
That drive for perfection, though, it must sometimes stop them in their tracks.
To their Achilles heel, definitely. That perfectionism can lead to analysis paralysis.
Hmm.
They get so focused on getting every single detail perfect that they struggle to finish, to move forward. Simple tasks can get dragged out. And in a team, they can come across as overly critical.
Because they spot every flaw.
Exactly. Not usually out of malice, but because inaccuracies, logical errors, they genuinely bother a blue. This can make them seem emotionally distant, maybe unapproachable. They tend to keep interactions very professional, very structured.
So if I'm chatting with a blue, they're probably not going to lead with a story about their weekend or their pet cat.
Highly unlikely. Their physical presence often mirrors that internal structure. Minimal movement, often a somewhat closed posture, maybe arms crossed, maintaining distance. Their voice, usually subdued, controlled, not a lot of emotional variation. They speak relatively slowly, carefully choosing their words for maximum precision. No rushing.
Okay, so we've got these 4 distinct ways of operating. Red, all about dominance, speed, results. Yellow, inspiration, connection, fun. Green, steadiness, harmony, support. And blue, compliance, accuracy, details. The big realization here seems to be that all the friction we feel day to day, it's not usually because people are bad or flawed.
Exactly. It's mostly because we're speaking different languages. We're misinterpreting the signals because we expect everyone to operate like us. The goal isn't to judge them for being different.
But to adapt our approach.
Yes. And that adaptation, that's where emotional intelligence, EQ, comes in. It's about consciously choosing to modify your style to meet the other person where they are at their color. Trying to force everyone else to match your speed or your level of detail or your need for harmony, it's just exhausting. And frankly, it doesn't work.
So let's make this practical. Let's run through some scenarios. Say I need to give some important instructions or maybe some tricky feedback. How do I tailor it?
Okay, good idea. Let's start with the red boss, or that red colleague who's always impatient. You need to pitch an idea. Maybe you're a blue and you've done meticulous research, got 70 pages of data.
Uh-oh. Don't walk in with the 70 pages.
Please don't. You'll lose them on page 1. For reds, you need to be direct.
Yeah.
Laser focus on the bottom line, the results, the efficiency gain. Forget the preamble. Bullet points are your friend. 1 page, max. Objective, projected outcome, done.
Nice small talk.
Waste of time, in their view. Keep it professional, move fast. If there's a risk, state it factually, concisely, and then ask for their decision. Don't waffle.
Okay, got it. Now, what about that super energetic, easily distracted yellow colleague?
For yellows, engagement is everything. Start friendly, positive, upbeat. Use motivating language. Talk about the vision, how exciting or fun this project could be. Tap into that social energy. However, and this is crucial,
Stuck on track.
you have to maintain a clear agenda. Gently steer them back when they inevitably start drifting towards a funny story. Simplify the complex stuff. Focus on the big picture, the positive social outcomes, the feeling of success. Make it feel collaborative and fun, but structured.
All right. How does that contrast with approaching the sensitive, stability-loving green?
For greens, think safety, security, structure. If you're introducing a change, especially a big one, break it down. Small, manageable steps. Reassure them. Focus on how this change supports the team or maintains stability in the long run, not just how fast it makes you move.
Give them time.
Absolutely. Respect their need for processing time and space. And feedback. If you have to give criticism, it must be gentle, private, and focus strictly on the specific behavior. Never, ever on their character. Offer support. Reassure them. Time and reassurance are key.
Okay. And finally, the meticulous blue. If I bounce in with a yellow-style enthusiastic pitch.
You'll likely be met with silence. And maybe a raised eyebrow. Silent judgment. For blues, preparation is non-negotiable. Be factual, professional. Bring the data. Focus on precision, quality, logic. Avoid emotional appeals, vague generalizations, personal anecdotes.
Stick to the facts.
Stick to the facts. Be ready for detailed questions. If you're giving instructions, be incredibly specific. If giving feedback, you need concrete, verifiable evidence. Getting things in writing is often wise. And maybe even ask them to summarize their understanding back to you, just to ensure absolute clarity.
This really highlights how stress plays into it all. The source mentions that stress triggers are different for each color, right? And under stress, we don't change color, we just become more of our color.
Exactly. We double down on our default behavior.
Yeah.
Stress makes the red even more controlling and impatient. The yellow gets more scattered and talkative. The green becomes more withdrawn and resistant to change. The blue gets even more critical and bogged down in details. It's a vicious cycle.
So understanding those triggers is like preventative medicine.
It really is. Knowing what pushes each color's buttons helps you avoid pushing them, or helps you understand their reaction if they are stressed.
Okay, let's define those triggers. What sends a red over the edge?
Reds get stressed by anything that hints at inefficiency, lack of progress, wasted time. Feeling blocked by bureaucracy or losing control or authority is major stress. How do they cope? Often by taking action, maybe exercising, moving quickly to regain control, or directly confronting whatever they see as the obstacle.
Makes sense. And yellows. What makes their optimism dip?
Yellows feel stressed if they're ignored, isolated, or forced into rigid structures. Too much seriousness, skepticism, or lack of social interaction is tough for them. Feeling unpopular is a big stressor. How they cope? Usually by seeking interaction, organizing something social, telling jokes, trying to lighten the mood, maybe distracting themselves and others.
And the stabilizer, green. What rocks their boat?
Greens are primarily stressed by rapid, unpredictable change. Unclear expectations or tasks feel very unsafe. Being pushed into the spotlight, forced attention, they hate that. Conflict feels like a personal attack on harmony. Coping mechanisms often involve seeking quiet time, retreating, maybe focusing on predictable hobbies, needing space to decompress and feel safe again.
And the analytical blue. What disrupts their careful world?
Blues get stressed by spontaneity, perceived chaos, having to make decisions without enough information, risk-taking, and emotional outbursts from others. Informality can make them uncomfortable. Their biggest fear is being linked to an error. Unfounded criticism is particularly stressful. If you criticize a blue, you better have your facts straight. How they cope? By needing space and time. They need to retreat, analyze, process internally, away from pressure.
It becomes so clear listening to this. A really effective team, a successful organization, it needs all these types, doesn't it? A room full of only reds might move fast, but
They'll probably drive right off a cliff because they skipped the blues' quality check or ignored the greens' concerns about team impact.
right.
Erikson talks about that conference experiment. It's a great illustration. They put groups of only one color together and gave them a task.
Yeah.
The results, predictably disastrous in different ways.
How so?
The all-red teams finished super fast, but they completely misunderstood the goal, rushed the wrong thing. The all-blue teams got totally stuck, methodical, quiet, but paralyzed by details. Apparently spent ages debating the font for the report, never actually deciding anything substantive.
Analysis paralysis, literally.
Totally. The all-green teams, so focused on consensus, on not upsetting anyone, they ended up with a vague, watered-down plan that pleased no one. And the all-yellow teams
Had a great time.
got a fantastic time. Brainstormed loads of creative ideas, chatted, laughed, but completely failed to produce any concrete, optionable plan. It just proves it. Diversity isn't just nice to have, it's the only way to actually succeed.
Which really underlines the need for self-awareness, doesn't it? Especially when you have those potentially challenging pairings, like a super fast red managing a slow and steady green, or a big picture yellow leading a detail-obsessed blue.
Those high-friction combinations require maximum self-awareness on both sides. The red needs to consciously slow down, ask questions, listen. The blue needs to try and appreciate the yellow's energy and idea generation, not just see the lack of immediate structure. It takes effort.
So we started this whole deep dive thinking about that feeling of being surrounded by idiots. But the real takeaway seems to be, it's rarely about them being idiots. It's about us failing to see their operating system, their color. The friction isn't usually malice, it's a mechanical failure in communication.
Precisely. And that's why self-awareness is the absolute key. Knowing your own dominant colors, and crucially, knowing your own limitations, maybe your red tendency towards aggression, or your yellow lack of follow-through, or the green conflict avoidance, or the blues nitpick, and that's step one.
Okay.
And if you're really unsure about someone else's color, or you find yourself in a tense emotional moment, the source suggests a good default strategy. Just try acting green for a bit. Focus on listening, showing openness, aiming for harmony, at least until you can get a better read on the situation.
That makes sense. Let's go back to Strur, the CEO. If he'd had this framework, instead of just getting angry and making statements like, why isn't this done yet? Which is classic red.
He might have approached it differently.
Yeah.
And that brings us to maybe the final really powerful thought here. The difference between making a statement and asking a question.
How so?
A statement, especially an aggressive or judgmental one like Stir's, tends to close the other person down. Defenses go up instantly. But a genuine question, it has the power to open the mind.
So instead of jumping to, "You're doing it wrong," or assuming stupidity,
You shift to seeking understanding. Instead of that red judgment, maybe ask, help me understand your thinking behind this approach, or what information do you feel you're missing to move forward confidently? It's a subtle shift, but profound.
asking for comprehension, not making an accusation.
Exactly. That simple change fosters tolerance. It redirects your energy and theirs away from defensiveness and conflict and towards mutual understanding. It's the difference between needing that red warning light at reception and actually building a team that communicates effectively.
It's a powerful shift. So the challenge for everyone listening is maybe start observing. Look at the people around you, colleagues, family, friends. See if you can start spotting the colors, anticipating their needs, maybe adjusting your own style just a little.
Keep your eyes open, as Erikson says. You'll see just how different people are. What you do with that knowledge,
Yeah.